The Baron didn't sleep that night. Neither did William. He sat in the guest quarters of Cast Manor, a small room, functional stone walls, a single window overlooking the eastern hills, and mapped the consequences of what had happened in the maw. The response options were limited. Kulgrash could escalate, send patrols into the upper strata, test the Baron's dungeon response capability. He could probe the overworld perimeter, testing the garrison's reaction time. Or he could hold, report to Gruznak, and wait for instructions. The third option was the most dangerous. It meant the decision would come from the top, from a level 38 warlord who was uniting orc tribes across the region and who had just learned that a minor baron's survey team had killed 3 of his soldiers. This is bigger than the cure, bigger than the salt. This is geopolitical. Sunheart Route, Ashfall Mountains, level 25 minimum. Widow's Tears, Ancient Ruins, Dying God, level 30 plus. Blood of the Earth, Deepest Dungeon, Demons, level 35 plus. At some point before dawn, he slept. The Baron summoned him at first light. William talked. He told the Baron everything Divine Sage had provided. Gruznak's level, 38, his strategy, uniting tribes through conquest and alliance, his rate of expansion, 3 tribes consolidated in the past 2 years, with more expected, and his likely timeline for horde formation, 2 to 5 years if unchecked, sooner if he gained access to ancient weapons or significant resources. He didn't mention Divine Sage. He attributed the intelligence to sources and guild reports and pattern analysis. Theron was smart enough to know that a 14-year-old didn't have access to this level of strategic intelligence, but he was also smart enough not to ask questions he didn't want answered. "The Dungeon Tribe," Theron said when William finished. Kulgrashes. "The orcs control down to the 4th stratum. Below that is Dark Elf territory. Below that is the Hellgate. The Dark Elves are a barrier between the orcs and the abyssal plane. They don't want demons in their territory any more than we want orcs on the surface. So the Dark Elves are our allies by default. Allies is strong. They're an obstacle to Gruznak that happens to be between him and something he wants. If he finds a way around them, a deeper passage, a deal, a conquest, the calculus changes. I listen to adventurers. I read guild reports. I pay attention to patterns." The same answer he always gave. True enough, incomplete enough. "Kale was right about you." "What did Kale say?" "Your salt sample. Do you have what you need?" "I do." No point lying. The Baron was too sharp. "Good. Because you're not going back into that dungeon until I've secured the perimeter." He paused. "But if you want to continue your survey work, I have another option. There's a secondary dungeon entrance on the northern edge of my lands, a cave system that connects to the maw's upper levels through natural passages. It's shallower, less dangerous, and hasn't shown orc activity. I can give you access to that instead." "Good. I'll have the coordinates drawn up." Theron walked him to the door. "William, whatever you're really doing in my dungeon, the salt, the ore, the survey, I don't need to know. But if it puts my barony at risk, I need to know. Understand?" "Yes, sir." "Get your salt home safely. And tell my nephew he owes me a new practice dummy. He destroyed 3 last week." They left the Baron's estate that afternoon. William, Garrick, and the 2 garrison soldiers assigned as escort for the road back to Thorngate. The ride was uneventful. The roads were safe, the weather clear, the countryside peaceful in the way that only peaceful countryside can be when you know something ugly is building beneath it. They made camp on the second night, in a clearing off the main road. Bren and Holt took first watch. Garrick sat by the fire, sharpening his hammer's striking face with a whetstone, the rhythmic scrape of metal on metal a familiar sound. "You're thinking too hard," the dwarf said without looking up. It wasn't a question. Garrick had been watching William scrape those walls with the focus of a man harvesting something precious, not surveying. The dwarf was too experienced to miss it. "It's for the cure," William said. "The second ingredient." Garrick's hands stopped moving. He looked up, firelight catching the gray in his beard. "And the salt we just risked our lives for in an orc-infested dungeon is one of the easier ones." "Yes." Garrick stared into the fire. The flames reflected in his eyes, not the calculating look of a man working through a problem, but the quieter look of a man absorbing a new understanding of the stakes. "And you need all 5 to cure her." "All 5. Plus 3 days of brewing with a skilled forge worker who can maintain precise temperatures." He looked at Garrick. "That's you." The dwarf's jaw tightened. Not from anger, from the weight of the responsibility being placed on shoulders that had already carried too much. "Why now? Why not when you told me about the virus?" "Because I didn't know if the salt would be there. I didn't know if the maw had abyssal bleed strong enough to produce it. And I didn't want to give you hope based on a variable I couldn't confirm." Garrick grunted. It was the grunt that meant, "I disagree with your reasoning, but I understand your logic and we're not going to argue about it." Garrick's sharpening stopped, completely. The whetstone sat motionless against the hammer's face. "Level 25. Yes, level 25 is a legend. There are maybe a dozen people on this entire island who've reached level 25 in the last century. The King's War Marshal, the High Commander of the Cadwin Border Legion, the Grandmaster of the Adventurers Guild in the capital. People whose names are known, William. People whose strength shapes kingdoms. I know the statistics. Then you know that a 14-year-old human, even one with your gifts, talking about reaching level 25 in 6 months is like talking about swimming across the ocean. It's not ambitious. It's incomprehensible. Compounding. You're talking about experience gain like it's compound interest. Because it is. The verdant root's efficiency increases with each level. My channel capacity increases. My mana absorption rate increases. The amount of experience I gain from each kill increases because my channels can process more. It's a feedback loop. Garrick stared at him. The dwarf had seen many impossible things in the year he'd known William. Spirit binding, magic ore refinement at impossible temperatures, a 14-year-old outperforming smiths with decades of experience. But this was different. This was William describing a path to power that shouldn't exist, laid out with the same casual precision he used to describe forging temperatures. That's the plan. 6 months. In 6 months, Ilara's virus would have progressed from serious to critical. She'd be coughing blood regularly. Her mana channels would be failing in cascades. The yellowing in her eyes would spread to her skin. 6 months was too long, but it was what the math allowed. They arrived in Thorngate 4 days later. William's first stop was the church. Not the forge, not the smithy, the church. He needed to see Ilara before he did anything else. She was in the orphanage yard, sitting on a bench in the afternoon sun, watching the younger children play. Her white hair caught the light. Her tail lay limp in her lap. She was thinner than when he'd left, not dramatically, but enough. The collarbones were more visible. The wrists were sharper. "Business trip, delivering blades to a baron." "A baron. Look at you, doing business with nobility." She shifted on the bench, making room. "Sit. Tell me about it." He sat. He told her about the baron's estate, the ride through the countryside, the forge work, the military contract. He left out the dungeon, the orcs, the salt, the war. She didn't need to know any of that. "Bread." She laughed, a small, quiet laugh, barely more than an exhale. Dwarves and bread. Who would have thought? They sat in silence for a moment. The children played around them, a chaotic game involving a ball and a stick and rules that seemed to change every 30 seconds. One of the smaller children fell down, scraped a knee, and began crying. One of the older children picked him up, wiped the knee, and sent him back in. "I've been thinking about something," Ilara said. "I know. I had a family. A tribe. We lived in a forest. Not like the one near here. Bigger. Warmer. There were hot springs, and my mother used to braid my tail fur with flowers. A faint smile. I remember the flowers. Purple ones that grew near the water. I can't remember their name. Ilara? But sometimes, at night, when the children are asleep and the church is quiet, I lie awake, and I think about the hot springs and the purple flowers and my mother's hands braiding my fur. And I think, was that real? Did that happen? Or did I imagine it because the alternative is too sad? It was real. How do you know? I don't remember what freedom feels like, she said softly. Isn't that strange? I was free for the first 15 years of my life, and I can't remember what it felt like. I remember the hot springs and the flowers, but I don't remember being free. Just things. Images. The feeling is gone. William held her hand, said nothing. There was nothing to say that wouldn't be a lie or a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. The crest can't be removed. Only death releases it. No exceptions, no loopholes. The following week, a messenger arrived from Baron Cast. The secondary dungeon entrance was confirmed, a cave system on the northern edge of the barony, connecting to the maw's upper levels through natural passages. Shallower, quieter, no orc activity detected. The Baron was authorizing a 3-day survey window, starting in 10 days. William managed the business, gathered intelligence, and trained. Every dawn, he was in the courtyard behind the smithy, running through Gulmaris's forms with Verdanth. The sword had changed since the maw. The worm's spirit had absorbed something from the orc kills, not consciously, not deliberately, but the blade seemed denser. Now, the green shimmer brighter, the resonance with the living world more acute. It had fed on death and grown stronger. He trained with Kale when the prince was in town. Their sparring sessions had evolved. Kale was learning the Tempest form's breathing now, and the results were visible. The prince moved faster, hit harder, recovered quicker. His wind affinity was developing, channeling through his sword in ways. It feels like breathing underwater. Like I've been holding my breath my whole life, and someone finally told me I could inhale. Welcome to cultivation, Your Highness. It gets better, William said. Keep practicing. The foundation takes 6 months to stabilize. After that, the real growth begins. You're encouraging as always. I'm honest. It's a character flaw. They sat in comfortable silence. The forge was warming up inside. Garrick had arrived early, the hammer already ringing. The morning light was gold on the rooftops. The orcs are moving. My uncle showed me the patrol reports. 3 new incursions into the upper strata since your expedition. They're pushing up, testing the boundaries. And yesterday, a garrison patrol found this. He reached into his coat and pulled out a scrap of leather, rough, crude, clearly orc-made. Stamped into the leather was a symbol, a crude rendering of a fist crushing something round. Gruznak's mark, Kyle said. They're marking territory in the upper levels now. That's new. Orcs don't usually mark. They don't need to. Everyone knows whose territory is whose. This is a message. William looked at the crude fist symbol, felt the weight of it. Not the leather, not the stamping, but the intention behind it. An orc warlord, level 38, uniting tribes, marking territory, pushing boundaries, building toward something. I have 3 more ingredients to gather, a cure to brew, a woman to save. And now there's a war on the horizon. The clock ticked. Ilara coughed. The orc fist crushed the round thing on the leather. What? Something for the cure. Kale was quiet for a moment, processing. Then his eyes narrowed. Level 20. Kyle said it slowly, like he was tasting the number. You just said level 20. Casually, like it's normal. It's my current level. It's not a secret. William. The prince put down his practice sword. His expression had shifted, still friendly, but with an edge of something sharper underneath. I grew up in a palace where level 15 was considered exceptional. My father's personal guard are all level 16 to 18, and they're the deadliest fighters in the kingdom. My oldest brother, the crown prince, is level 19, and the court treats him like a living weapon. I've had advantages. Advantages! Kale laughed. Not the bright laugh from before. A tighter one. The laugh of someone recalibrating their entire understanding of a person. Your advantages include a cultivation system from 100,000 years ago, a sword with a dragon spirit in it, and whatever else you haven't told me. I've been training with you for weeks, and I thought you were talented, gifted. I didn't think I was sparring with someone who could probably kill the Crown Prince of Dural. I wouldn't kill your brother. I'm not asking you to explain everything. I told you I'd wait until you're ready. But William, you need to understand how this sounds from the outside. You sound like a myth that hasn't happened yet. The words hung in the morning air. The forge hammer rang inside. A bird sang from the rooftop. I know how it sounds, William said quietly. I've been hearing it for 14 years. Every time I say something that shouldn't be possible, every time I do something that the world forgot how to do, I hear it. The disbelief, the questions, the looks. Kyle held his gaze. The prince's eyes were complex. Frustration, loyalty, curiosity, and something that might have been fear, all woven together. Then he exhaled, long and slow, and the tension in his shoulders released. Fine. You're a myth that hasn't happened yet. Can the myth use backup? That's actually exactly what I need. Soon, but I need help. The deeper levels are beyond what I can handle alone. You have the dwarf. Garrick is essential for the brewing, but for the expedition, I need fighters, people I trust. Then something happens to me in a dungeon. I'm not going to sit in a garrison while my friends risk their lives. The grin was back, bright and stubborn. Besides, I've been training, the breathing, the forms. I want to test it, real combat. You've never killed anything. No, but I've been trained to since I could walk. And now I have something none of my weapons masters ever had. He stood up, and the morning light caught the new sharpness in his stance, the Tempest form's early-stage development visible in the way he held his weight, the way his shoulders sat, the way his breathing cycled. I'm not useless, William. Let me prove it. I know someone, one of my uncle's soldiers. Bren. She was on the survey expedition with you. She's level 15, knows the Maw's upper levels, and she doesn't gossip. My uncle trusts her with his life. Bren, the shield woman. Steady, professional, competent. She'd watched William fight in the Maw and hadn't asked how a 14-year-old moved like that. Good. I'll arrange the supplies. You get Bren. We go in 2 weeks.